Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Asiri. My goal is to help members of the armed forces as well as military veterans navigate their civilian career. Today's episode number 183. And for this episode, I wanted to take you to 2 weekends ago in May, Service to School, an incredible nonprofit that helps anyone from the military get into their ideal undergrad or graduate school. They've got an incredible program to help you figure out which school to go to, and then connects you with students at that school to help you through the application, military students at that school. So I attended their weekend summit, which if you missed it this year, definitely get on their newsletter so you can attend next year if you're thinking of anything in the world of education. What I wanted to do for today's episode is share with you one of the panels that I presented on. And the other members of the panel were, let me just pull this up. They had the Pat Tillman Foundation, the Commit Foundation, both of whom you can listen to Beyond the Uniform interviews with their leadership. Me for Beyond the Uniform, someone from the Warrior Scholar Project, and IAVA. And at the start of the video, Tim Shaw will introduce each person so you'll get a little bit more context for their background. So if you listen to the previous video, I think it was, or episode, it was number 180, I think, was with Service to School. The audio's not great. I set up a tripod and a video camera in the back of the room, so it's not terrific, but I was able to get video and audio for this. If you prefer video, the videos actually come out before the audio. I can schedule the audio a couple weeks in advance for the podcast. The video, not quite sure how to do that. So if you are so keen to get ahead on Beyond the Uniform, subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll get these episodes in advance. But anyways, enjoy the panel. It's the topic was more around services, other support structures for the veteran community, but I think we off-roaded quite a bit, and I think you'll find some value from this video. So hope you enjoy it, and let's dive into the Service to School panel on service organizations.
So I want to thank all of our Vet Mission officers, partners, from Sid, from Smith, Alex, Princeton, Carolina, from Williams. The list goes on. Cannot thank you all enough for being here. I also really want to thank our veteran service organization partners, from Kill from the Pat Tillman Foundation, Liz from Warrior Scholar Project, and Marie from the Commit Foundation, Hannah from IABA. As we all know, in terms of our transition, we need a lot of help. Some of us more than others. I needed a ton of help. I know Kill from the Pat Tillman Foundation has helped me. Liz and Sid from Warrior Scholar Project are fantastic partners in terms of transitioning from service to school. And Anne-Marie at the Commit Foundation has been helping veterans for many years with jobs, employment, entrepreneurship, and IAVA is one of the foremost veteran service organizations that helped create the UGI bill that many of us in this room are using. And so thank you all. And I'd like to start this panel with you all providing a brief intro about yourself and also about your organization. Kill, could you start?
We go to mic, or can everybody hear me okay? Is that cool? Yeah, permissible, Tim? All right. Thanks, everybody. My name is Killian Anderson. I work for the Pat Tillman Foundation. Retired Air Force years, 22 years, just short of 22 years active duty. Retired in 2014 as the Senior Enlisted Advisor at the United States Air Force Academy. And then got my dream job over at the Pat Tillman Foundation. We'll talk about it a little bit more about here. The one perspective, if I can, this big opportunity is not just an advocate for service to school, but actually a recipient of the services. I sent you this email today. I want you to read it. I hope you guys can see it. But in 15, I was kind of toying with the idea of going back to business school, and I emailed Khalil and Tim, and they swung into action kind of on my behalf. Started seeing some familiar names on that email trail, Gus and David, wherever you're at, now you're in here, David. That literally assembled this group of people around me to help me put together a competitive package to actually go to business school. So I'll tell you, it's proof of concept, it works, and I'm grateful for you guys helping out.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Butlin from the Warrior Scholar Project. I am not a veteran myself, but my husband and my brother were both in the Navy, so I do have some connections there. I started working for Warrior Scholar almost 4 years ago. When we first started, we started our program at Yale. What we do is we run what we call academic boot camps. They are for active duty enlisted service members and veterans who do not have an undergraduate degree yet or are transitioning from the military into higher education. We partner really perfectly with Service to School because Warrior Scholar Project, we kind of give you the crash course of what you need to know to be successful when you get to school. But we're not experts on the actual admissions process. So we partner really closely with Service to School, and ideally, if you are a transitioning veteran who doesn't have a degree yet and is applying to school, you can use both of our services. And I'm sure I'll talk about that.
I'm Justin Siri. I run on the side a program called Beyond Uniform. I've spoken with a couple of you, but just out of curiosity, has anyone here listened to a Beyond Uniform episode? Awesome. So my path was Navy, went to business school at Stanford, and I've been in startups since then. Stanford was a great way to figure out what I wanted to do, but it cost $150,000. It took 2 years of my life, and I thought there's got to be a more efficient way to do this than that. And so 2 years ago at a friend's birthday party, there was a bunch of military people there. They were complaining about, as I had complained 5 years earlier, about I have no idea what I want to do. And I thought, we can find a scalable way to address that that's completely on demand and completely free. And so most of the format of what I've done, and we'll talk about this, but it's interviewing vets. Anyone from NFL players, Pepsi, CBO, photographers for ESPN, you name it, vets are doing it. I just put a mic in front of them and ask them to talk about what they do, explain that to a military audience, and then giving advice to other people to do the same. So that's the bulk of what I do with Beyond Uniform. Also some data analysis that we can talk about as well, looking at trends in veteran behavior based on publicly available information.
Hi, I'm Ian Sidway, and I'm with Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. I'm also the spouse of an Army veteran, and IDA helped fight for, created, and ultimately passed the post-9/11 GI Bill in 2008. Today, we are on Capitol Hill fighting daily to defend the GI Bill, as well as a bunch of other legislative and policy agenda items. I work for our Rapid Response Referral Program, which is a remote case management program. And we help with kind of any issue under the sun, so housing, mental health, employment, education. With education specifically, we have kind of master's level case managers who are experts in the ins and outs of the GI Bill, and we've helped thousands of veterans who have unfortunately hit snags with their benefits, whether that's a challenge with AD bureaucracy or some other kind of hiccup along the way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Craig, and I'm with the Commit Foundation. Our mission is to ensure that you have purpose, both personally and professionally, after uniform. In the academic realm, we have helped Stanford GSB build a Ignite program for post-9/11 vets, and we've helped Tuck at Dartmouth build Next Step. So we've been involved a little bit in some academic programs, but primarily we build solutions around you. And so I think we differentiate ourselves from other organizations in that we're not prescriptive in our approach. And there's a lot we have to offer you both before, during, and after school to help you figure out what it is that you want to do. From a background perspective, I was a student for a long time. I was doing a PhD in Romance languages when 9/11 happened, and I pivoted into the government, worked as a targeter in the intelligence community, and married into the Army.
Thank you all. One initial question I have is, you all see tons of veterans. You interview them, you see them apply to the Pat Tillman Foundation, you see them through the Pat Tillman Foundation, you see them through 2 minutes. I'm curious, what are, and we probably asked this very enough question 3 different ways, what are the common mistakes that veterans do in their transition, whether that's to school or whether that's to employment?
I'll start that one. I think the biggest thing is that people don't, we call it a tactical pause or operational pause in the military, is you don't take it. You feel very pressured and rushed to know what you're going to do next. think one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself is put a time limit on it. Give yourself 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is that you can afford to take, and really take that time to do a self-assessment on what you want to do, what you want to be. We recommend the book Designing Your Life out of the Stanford Design School. It really helps you assess when you experience flow, what your work values are, what your life values are. And I think it's to take that pause. Sometimes people go to school to take that pause and build their network and think through, but I think, you mentioned the economic side of going to school. I think you just take a time out and really think through what you want your life to look like. I think that's the biggest mistake, is folks rushing into things.
A lot that we see through our work with veterans and what my husband himself experienced was just a lack of kind of knowledge. And I think that really can apply to the education system and GI benefits, and not having kind of sound guidance. And, when you start your plan, to have trusted people to support you and give you the information that's helpful.
So I've interviewed about 180 vets at this point about their transition. The trends that I've found are 3 that I think are most prominent. First of all, vets suck at selling themselves. We have a culture of folks, if you want to talk about my team, what my ship did, I'm good. But I remember when I was in business school, this guy was like, I built this satellite program which launches satellites into space. I'm like, that's so rad. And then I figure out he's part of a 500-person team, and he was the 5 rows down from the boss. I'm like, well, I would tell that story differently. And I think most vets are like that. So learning to be able to advocate for yourself, learning to be able to sell yourself in a way that doesn't feel slimy, but also feels authentic, because you are, whether it's for school or for a job, you are competing against people who've been doing that for 5 to 10 years longer than you, and if they can sell themselves really effectively, you'll come across poorly. Self-knowledge, as Anne-Marie spoke to, is probably the second biggest one, really knowing what lights you up, really knowing what energizes you. Coaches are a great way to do that. We just launched a coaching program with Beyond Uniform. Books are a great way to do that, but just really getting insight into what you want to do for this next phase of your career. And then last one is there can be a sense of overconfidence that a lot of my guests talk about, and that is you exit the military having done absolutely incredible things, but oftentimes the perception is that your civilian counterparts have been twiddling their thumbs and playing with Lincoln logs. And the truth is, that was a direct quote from someone on the show, but the truth is they've been working really, really hard, and if you adopt the mindset that you're needing to catch up, whether it's true or not, you're going to really hustle to bridge that gap, and the wealth that you bring from the military will get you ahead, but you do need to, in the short term, really make up in a couple functional areas.
For Warrior Scholar Project, we have close to 750 people who've gone through the program, and we always survey them before they come to the course, after they leave, and then again throughout their pursuit of higher education, check in with them and see how things are going. And one of the questions that we ask them is, what are the challenges that you have faced in your transition to school, or that you expect to face in your transition to school? And I'm always surprised by one of the top answers year after year is interacting with traditional undergraduate students is one of the biggest things that they feel is a challenge and a hurdle to just being in school again, is having to be around field undergrads and not being able to relate to the rest of the student population. So that's one of the things that we try to address. And then also that goes along with that is just a feeling of isolation. You're leaving your military community and you're entering, not only re-entering the civilian world, but entering the civilian academic landscape. It's just such a shift. And so we address both of those things. I'd say that goes into kind of the mistake that some people make is feeling those things, feeling that way, feeling isolated, and then keeping themselves isolated from the rest of the student population and from the resources that are available on campus. So at Warrior Scholar Project, I think what makes our program so successful is that we force all of our participants to come onto a college campus and live there for a week or 2 weeks. And we immerse them in that environment. and kind of prove to them, like, you don't have to just, you know, come to school and then leave. Like, you could actually thrive in this environment and be really successful here. And you don't have to, you know, be worried about utilizing all of these resources, whether it's campus resources or your classmates. Because you could, one of our alumni who's a staff member who came back to work for us, what he said is he went into school and he identified like the top performing students in his class. None of them happened to be veterans, but he was like, I found those students, I made friends with them, I mimicked what they were doing, I mimicked how they were taking notes, how they were operating in study group, and I started doing really well. So good things to keep in mind.
So at Tillman Foundation, we interface with a lot of military veterans and spouses, and when I come across veterans that I would say I think had a successful transition, to kind of answer your question, is really kind of trace it down to three things. The first is separating retirement from the military needs to be a process and not an event. Is it something that you need to get ready, that you need to plan for and think about? I had a really good conversation, your name's escaping me, I sat with a young lady over here today that has a plan, she's working towards it, and is thinking about that time, and it's coming. And then to borrow a line from David Lee, who told me once that, like, you have to view yourself as your best years of service are still ahead of you as you leave the military. You know, I have a problem with veterans that think they corner the market or the moral authority on service. You know, pastors serve, the guy or gal that hands out basketballs in a community center serves. So it's really this notion of thinking about getting out of the military and continuing to serve in another meaningful way. And then the third is just not to undervalue yourselves, is that your skills translate. Right? They all translate. I was an enlisted cop, right? I waved traffic, I pulled people over, I worked dispatch. I'm a nonprofit executive now. And that's because we have military inspections. Well, guess what? The audit is like a military inspection. They're just not jerks when you come through, right? So, you know, there's a lot of parallels. So don't undervalue yourself. Don't get all spooked by it. Have a plan, start working towards it. And like interfacing with groups like this will help you make that transition and then find another meaningful way to achieve your service.
I have a number of questions, but I wanted the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions to this panel. Okay, I'll ask my question. So there's purportedly tens, hundreds of thousands of veterans organizations. I don't see them. You know, I usually just hit these organizations, but I know there's some that there's a good number that exist. I'm curious, what can the government, whether it's VA or the Department of Defense or other nonprofits, do for veterans? For veterans, are there any gaps in terms of veteran support right now? So we help people apply to school, where Scholar Project helps them with that transition to school and that academic boot camp, commit, Pat Tillman, IAA, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious if you think there are remaining any more gaps, or essentially, hey veterans, there's a service out there for you, cowboy up and you get to work.
So gaps in service specifically, needs that are being met?
Exactly, whether it's employment, healthcare, education, mental illness.
So, I think there's an incredibly long list, unfortunately. A few things that we have kind of identified this year in our policy agenda, which is based on our membership survey. So we have nearly 500,000 veteran members that we survey every year. And a few things that popped out of that survey this year, the top one is benefits. So toxic disclosures on employments isn't being addressed through the VA or otherwise. So we've initiated a campaign to demand for A, recognition, and B, research on the VA side, so that those who have been exposed to toxic exposures can get the medical care and the attention and acknowledgement that they deserve. And another one that is slightly controversial is the campaign to initiate research on cannabis, to explore if there are benefits for cannabis and to try and move away from the kind of opiate-fueled medication that's happening via the VA and elsewhere. And then our main campaign this year is to recognize women veterans and the sometimes unique challenges that women veterans face. From the motto, "It's the VA when you walk in," and it's an Abraham Lincoln quote that is, about him, right? So it excludes female veterans to make sure that services are available at every VA for female veterans, and that, the experiences of that population of veterans is being acknowledged, respected, and
Thank you. I'm curious, for each of your organizations, what are the top 2 to 3 priorities you all have for the remaining of the year and into 2019?
I'll speak to that if I can, because I wanted to make sure I told everybody about a new program that we launched in March. We found a commit in 2012 after assessing the veteran space in 2011 and seeing that high-performing veterans were being overlooked. A lot of folks ask me what a high-performing veteran is, and really it's all ranks, all services. We're looking for folks with fire in their belly. And at the beginning of this year, it's pretty exciting. We were gifted our biggest gift yet, because we've been getting a lot of pressure to scale. And we chose to scale through technology and through partnership. And one of our technology pieces, we have a new program called BTC. My husband said that was a really stupid one because, the military, it's video teleconferencing, it's veteran transition coaching. We repackaged a piece of software that some executives had built called BTC. It's about a 3 to 6 month program based on your ability to engage. It's an online piece of software, 7 steps where you get an executive coach with at least 10 hours of executive coaching at no cost. When I saw the final product, we spent about 6 to 8 months building it last year. When I saw the final product, I said to myself, it's almost a shame if I don't pick up the phone and call DOD and tell them what we've built. I truly think we've built something that can transform the transition assistance space. And so I encourage all of you to take a peek at BTC. You apply to be a member or to be a recipient of our services on our website through our one-on-one transition program, and then you would get pushed towards BTC. So our putting at least 150 folks through that program this year is a goal. We're also building out a digital library. We put on mentoring workshops across the country where 12 to 16 participants participate at a time. Commit's really big on quality of service rather than quantity served, but we realized we could scale our touch through a digital library. So interact with that. We're building it out. And I think one of the biggest things, there were a couple things that I wrote down. For folks that are trying to fill skill gaps, reach out to us. If it's training the street you need to go to learn financial modeling, P&L, if it's a coach, if you want to test the waters and take some classes somewhere, we can offer scholarships, we can give coaches. We really do tailor our solutions to y'all. And we've been given a pretty significant gift to scale and serve more people, and so that's what we're trying to do without diluting the quality of our services.
So our 2 priorities this year are our policy agenda, which I briefly went over a few minutes ago, and then to continue to serve veterans and families across the nation in our case management program. We have, veterans calling saying that they're homeless, or, just last week I had someone on the phone, they had a recoupment issue with the VA, so like an $80,000 debt was kind of landed on their lap. They've been struggling with PTSD and some other challenges, and that veteran on the phone with me expressed, a desire to kill themselves. So making sure that we're, linked up with veterans who are in need. I think with the remote model, we get a lot of calls and emails from people that maybe wouldn't reach out otherwise. It was kind of a hard adjustment for me to work remotely with people. It felt very impersonal, but I really come around to that. Like the call last week, that person said, if I had to walk into someone's office or talk to my social worker at the VA, I never would have mentioned that. And I was able to patch them through to the Veterans Crisis Fund and ensure that they have support moving forward. So those kind of remain our 2 priorities, the policy side and then the direct assistance side.
The interviews I do are just feedback driven based on the functional roles and industries the community wants to hear from. I've added a coaching component, professional, executive, and career coaches that give a discount to veterans, and we're adding a financial advising component like that as well, professional financial advisors who can help you figure out your plan either on active duty or after active duty, make sure you have the runway to figure out exactly what you want
priority is probably our expansion into STEM. So the classic Warrior Scholar Project course is 1 year long and it focuses on the humanities. So we teach things like analytic reading, cultural writing, and then what we call tactical skills, note taking, time management, seminar discussion skills. So incredibly crucial. Our development of STEM courses, that's a 2-week-long course. So what I really like about it is you still get the first week focused on humanities, but the second week shifts into STEM curriculum. And this summer, we run all of our courses during the summer so that we can have full access to the universities where we host our courses. This summer, we have 7 STEM course locations. So we've added new course locations. We've added some that have that STEM component. Because we've seen a majority of our applications that come in to people wanting to participate in Warrior Scholar are interested in pursuing STEM majors and are really interested in having like a crash course in STEM. So that's really cool. So those locations are going to be Yale, University of Notre Dame, Princeton, Texas A&M, University of Oklahoma, MIT, University of Arizona. Those are our STEM course locations. And then we'll continue hopefully to expand maybe 1 or 2 new course locations every summer as we move forward.
This random question, how likely or impossible is it for you all to branch into, say, like law school or business school for like Warrior Scholar Project?
That's a great question. So one of our new campuses this summer is the University of Pennsylvania. And another initiative for next year is to actually develop that course into a 2-week-long course where the second week is focused on business curriculum. So that is one of our initiatives coming up.
And I didn't mention kind of our mission at the Pat Tillman Foundation at the beginning, but really our mission is to unite and empower remarkable military veterans and spouses as the next generation of public and private sector leaders. We're deeply committed to service beyond themselves. So every year we convene a scholarship. About 2,300 people applied this year, and we landed on 60. Right. So I think like a military Rhodes Scholar, if you will, for right? Like really high ceiling, proven track record, military veteran or spouse, but importantly committed, deeply committed to something that they experienced in their life and their military service. So our bet is that that proven track record plus passion about a cause will result in this ripple effect. So to kind of answer your question about where our 2 priorities lie, we've got the scholarship piece figured out. We're able to help people go and attend. We've helped over 520 people attend over 100 universities nationwide. We're on our 10th class this year. But we're building out 2 other tenants, and the second tenant is this network tenant. So one of our priorities this fall is to continue to broker relationships with different organizations out there to give these men and women a platform to talk about the work that they're accomplishing. Case in point, South by Southwest is somebody we recently came to deal with, has a big social impact platform. We had 15 to 20 Tillman scholars down here. Tim was one of them this spring, out looking at that in the area to tell their story about what they're working on. And then the second piece is this layering in of what we're going to call the Tillman Affinity Network. And so we are always on the lookout for, while we are community builders with this, scholar community, there's kind of this community around the community, if you will, of impactful people. Because as you look at investing in a veteran, like we're all these kind of like non-traditional students, right? We're showing up in colleges, 26 or 28 or 45 in my case, and you need some assistance just to kind of help get the lay of the land. So the second priority is really finding those thought leaders in the various different focus, in the areas of focus to kind of help these men and women reach their full potential.
Fantastic. I have some more questions. I'm going to launch into this one because I'm really curious what you all will say, and then I'll bring it back to the audience. What do you think the percent of veterans are that are thriving versus treading versus drowning, right? And we somewhat think about this because we try to figure out how many applicants should we be seeing, how many applicants should we be helping. I'm curious, I'm guessing that you all think about this, so I'm curious what you think that percent breakdown might be. Or if that's a complete wrong way to look at it.
Yeah, I would say it might be, I probably can't throw out a percentage, but one thing that scares the hell out of me and it's what gets me up and doing this work every day is the folks that are faking the funk. The folks that walk in the room with the Cheshire Cat grin, crushing it at work, and they're miserable. And at night, they're not engaging with their wives, with their kids, and they're out in their garages tinkering, and trying to find escape. So I worry, about that population, the folks that you think are okay, that appear to be high performing or not?
I don't think it's impossible to put a percentage, but kind of similar to what you're saying, that, you know, we interact with some of the population that is either, you know, at the worst point of their lives, so we're helping them kind of get on a upward trajectory, or they come to us for a need that is sort of superficial, and they put on the face that everything's fine, and then you hang the phone up and you kind of wonder, you know, how are things really going in that household, and, you know, are they going to reach back out for help, and are they going to so I don't think I fully answered your question, but definitely it's something I ponder a lot. I work with veterans that, again, are normally reaching out because something isn't working. So I celebrate the interactions with the population that they have.
I don't think that makes sense.
I think that the Student Veterans of America did a study, their INVEST study shows that, I'm pretty sure about this, that student veterans graduation rates are slightly higher than just the average population. So I would say veterans in school, I would guess they're thriving by and large. The people who we see, typically it's not that they're not thriving, it's that they don't even realize that they can thrive in that environment. So yeah, I would say that's kind of the population that we're addressing. It's just those people who haven't even realized that they could apply to a top school or school that's not, you know, on their base or in their hometown.
Yeah, I'm certainly hesitant to hang a percentage on it, right, for, you know, who's thriving versus isn't. Because you have to think about just kind of just transitions in general, right? I mean, military members aren't the only folks that are transitioning. We've got a son who's going to finish college soon, right? He's transitioning. So I don't know how much. There's certainly veterans that need some assistance. We know that. But I also think there have also a unique skill set that is deeply valued outside of the military. So I think if we're really interested in kind of breaking down some of this military civilian divide, is to stop looking at all these problems in the context of a military versus a civilian, and to be a productive member of society, right? As you get out of the military, work your best to reach your full potential. Some people need some assistance in there, but in terms of thriving, I would be curious, how many high schoolers that don't serve in the military have difficulties transitioning into college or other. So I don't think it's immune to just the veterans. And I think we need to be very careful about households as a veteran problem all the time, because we're just feeding that broken veteran narrative when it's like, go do your thing. If you need some help, there are some resources here too, but we need to redefine ourselves, I think, to this big point.
Thank you. Questions from the audience?
So maybe this is just because I live under a rock, but so I'm still on active duty, and I'm going through the transition assistance program, and bam, here's like a million different nonprofits who can't wait to help me, and there's so many different options. It's analysis paralysis. So how come 1 year out, 2 years out, what's the barrier for you guys as organizations to reach people who are getting ready to transition? Like, how come there was no information except for like, all right, hey, you're 6 months out, boom, look at this gigantic binder, good luck, you know?
For us, we hear from people that are often a couple years post-transition. So, you know, they've gotten out. There are, 40,000 plus veteran service organizations that are there to jump in and help.
Right.
Most of my clients literally say to me, I've been bounced around by like 10 organizations, and I'll call and they'll promise they're going to help me. They'll realize that they can't, and they give me a resource like the phone numbers and say like things haven't been like taken care of. So that's like why we created our case management program, is to, you know, remove the bounce around and what I call the ping pong effect.
I think in an ideal world, we would start working with somebody 18 months out. We've worked with people 3 years out, 5 years out, but it sort of depends what we're going to use or tool that person with based on their timeline. But I think in an ideal world, if you can start working with an organization that resonates with you, and at the 18-month point, and hopefully I'm somehow answering your question, I think if you can spend the first 6 months doing that self-exploration. What's your timeline? Do you know?
I'm out of the Army in August 20th.
Yeah, so and we work with people that got out 2 years ago and are in a job, they hate their job, and they're trying to reset too. But in an ideal world, you spend that first time doing that self-exploration, and then I would say like the next 3 to 6 months, really working to identify industries, missions, teams, people, locations that resonate with you. And then like the last 3 to 6 months with really hard opportunities. And that's sort of what we facilitate as an organization. I think it's important, it's crazy that there's over 45,000 veteran service organizations, but at the same point, I think it's really important. One organization is going to be able to solve it all. When we try to do it all, we dilute our ability to do what we do well. And not every organization is going to resonate with you, right? So, 85% of life is just showing up. You guys are here, and we all know y'all can do more than show up. And so, listening to people like this, and one of my biggest things is we focus on people and relationships. That's what Commit does really well. And if we run into other challenges or things that you might need, we're going to make sure that you're in the right hands. And it's not a list of names and organizations for you to randomly call. It's you and I have built a bond, and if you've got some things that you need to deal with, I'll make sure you're in the right hands to deal with them. So I think finding someone that an organization that resonates with you and will take care of your requirements is really important.
That was like perfect.
I guess maybe just to focus it down a little bit more, my question more specifically is, how do you as organizations reach the transitioning veteran? What is the barrier to entry for you? Like, you can't touch these people until they're a certain amount of time out, because all the access, all the information I've found has strictly been by word of mouth. I found service at school when I called Stanford's OMAC. I found Deloitte's core program because I had a buddy who went through it. But outside of word of mouth, in between service members, how are you reaching veterans who are getting ready to transition?
I can't speak directly to that, but I've interviewed the Commit Foundation, I'm interviewing Pat Tillman on Friday, I've interviewed American Corporate Partners, Bunker Labs, Breakpoint Education, all exceptional. 20 other organizations, they share your frustration. Every single one of them, without exception, is trying to get in front of you. There's a lot of noise. I tuned out all of TAPS. I don't remember a single thing from that class, so maybe I heard about those things then. But it's very, very difficult to try and find a way to get in front of an active duty audience, and even a veteran audience. Once, anecdotally, once the vet is out and they're active on LinkedIn, it's a little bit easier to target them. But every single organization I've interviewed 100% shares your frustration on the other side of trying to get to you.
And they've been trying to fix it for a while. I remember when Admiral Mullen was the chairman, they started Warrior Gateway, and there have been plenty of organizations that have tried to, vet, feed, help you narrow, etc., your options, etc. And it's really, I think, just about getting out there and listening. And they say luck is the intersection of persistence and opportunity. So hopefully you're going to be lucky.
I can give you a couple tactical things from S2S perspective also. One is that the DoD controlling the military and the VA are very siloed orgs. And so if you want to get into TAPS or whatever they are in the transition, there's a bureaucracy within the DoD that you have to go through to try to get your material in front of a vet, which is totally different than the Department of Veteran Affairs. So if you want a vet to see it, the Veteran Affairs silo is very different. Second thing is every base has a base commander, has an enormous amount of influence on what happens to that base. So if you want to visit a base, you have to go through another different layer of bureaucracy to get on that base. And then the third thing, so the silos, the base commanders, the third thing is, think about when you're a platoon leader, you're a commander, and your soldier's about 2 years out, you're probably getting ready to deploy, you're training. The last thing you as a commander want that soldier's focus to be on is the exit. Unless you're a good one, right? Unless you're good, hey, you gotta have a plan, right? So those are the challenges that we've all faced in trying to get in front of people, because it is. I mean, you can see some of the challenges we have here today, but it's very hard to get in front of people. And then I guess the fourth challenge is, especially on the enlisted side, could not care one bit about what an officer, or sometimes even a first sergeant or NCO says So how do you get to the specialist? Because they're listening to their specialist roommate more than they're listening to any other. So it's like, how do you get to that person? And then that's a whole other text or social media and all that kind of stuff.
And to second what Gus said, Gus, about a year and a half ago, had a call with Daniel Feehan, who was like the Undersecretary of Defense for Transition Assistance Program, who, by the way, is a film installer. And that's how we got connected. And Daniel's like, this rocks. Interesting, sorry for this side note, like we get about a third of our applicants through Google AdWords, which is the Google Ad Grant, which is amazing. And I've been requesting our CTO, Tad Hagelin, who works at Facebook, like we love Facebook ad credits, right? Because like if the Russians or whoever can target Americans at all, we'd love to get to target like transitioning veterans just as well.
It's a good point though, right? Like it's maddening, right? Getting out. Because I remember like going, okay, here's my base pay, take away BH, take away BS, I need to make this much, right? And you're like just trying to figure out how to keep the lights on, right? First. So I remember like my approach was, I'll figure out how to keep the lights on. And then like I'll go find something like some purpose. Right? Like literally that was kind of like my game plan, just like a crappy great game plan, right? So there's this like extraordinary disconnect because I remember being on active duty and seeing like JP Morgan Chase is going to hire 10,000 vets, Starbucks is going to, I'm like, where are they at right now? Thanks. Looking around, all right? And so there is this disconnect. I think the really important bridge is the men and women you serve with that are separated and kind of help you navigate that. Sources certainly provides that. That is, I think, a welcome byproduct of helping people see your mission. It's just that advice. Because I remember people saying, it's not that big of a deal, it's a non-event. I'm like, well, crap, it isn't. Like, I'm feeling it right now. Where am I going to live? I live on base, so I got to go find somewhere to live. So I think people can help you navigate to have separated or retired out there. That's certainly what we're doing here now, right? Call me a minute, right? And we try to figure out how to bridge that gap a little bit. But it's going to take kind of a community-based solution to community problem. If you're thinking TAP's going to do it, it's just not. You can't, was it 3 days?
5.
They've got the tracks. I'm not trying to knock it. It's just a very difficult problem to try and solve. But I think we, as like people, can help move that a little bit. It's about making inroads with people who have separated and getting advice from them on that transition.
Any other questions? John?
So all of our organizations, I think, were founded kind of at the height of combat deployments. We're sending hundreds of thousands of people overseas every year into Iraq and Afghanistan. My question is, one, how worried are you that public perception and the basis of support for all of our organizations relies on the public image of combat deployments? And then, regardless of where you stand on that, what are your organizations doing to prep for the future where combat deployments potentially, hopefully, are fewer and you still have to build up public support for what we're doing for that?
I don't worry about it at all. I realized 2 years ago that as long as Commit Foundation is creating value, we will not have a problem in space. And so we focus on value creation for both, our constituents, if you will, our veterans, and anybody with whom we partner. You've got 250,000 folks, I think they say, leaving the military regularly. About 7,500 of those are sort of our population, the population that Commit's focused on. And yeah, I mean, if you walk around America these days, I would pick a veteran over pretty much anybody as far as an employee. And so I truly don't think that there's going to be a problem. I mean, again, 85% is just showing up in the work ethic and everything that comes with it, right? And what we try to do is empower these folks to get back into their communities. These are the folks you want leading your kids' Boy Scout troops. You want them as your neighbors. You want them leading your companies. You want them in your classrooms, etc. And it doesn't concern me. I think if you're doing great work, it'll rise to the top. So.
For us, we're Iraq and Afghanistan veterans of America, but we work with all eras and family members as well. And something that I've always said, which maybe I should not be saying, but if there becomes a time when our services are not needed, that is like a very beautiful thing, right? That means everyone's needs are met. That means the VA is working properly. That means that everything's great. So if that happens, that's awesome.
Not to be too cynical, but I don't see that back in Afghanistan anything anytime soon. Any other questions? Sir.
This is a question for the post 9/11 GI Bill. I heard that they were recently changing the GI Bill from 36 months to 48 months if you were a STEM major. Do you have any more information about that at all?
I'm not positive about that, but if you want to connect with me after, I can ask our expert back at the office and we can get that information.
Great. I have a question for the panelists, which is, you all have helped tons of veterans. I'm curious, one or two or three veterans that come to the top of your mind that aren't in this room that have really, that you all have helped and how they were able to achieve whatever goals that they set aside. So it might be that Pepsi CEO, it might be like commits, the person on the front of your website. I'm curious, like who are these stellar transitioning service members, and what are the lessons that we can take away from their transition?
I mean, a story that sticks out in my mind is a veteran that, not the person I referenced earlier, but someone that I have been working with for over a year. He had come home from a deployment, was struggling severely with PTSD and substance use, marriage falling apart, losing connection to his kids, lost his job, and when we were on the phone, he expressed that he was having thoughts of suicide. He got off the phone with me, and I was kind of left to make a determination of, do I call law enforcement, do I call the Veterans Crisis Line, like, is this really turning into a tragic situation? I chose to call the Veterans Crisis Line, who deployed a unit to his home, got him the medical and psychiatric help that he needed. He resurfaced with me about a month later after being stabilized, and we ended up working together for a good 8 months after that, and kind of prioritizing the needs in his life and the needs of his family, and making like a short, medium, and long-term list, and then just attacking everything that needed to be done. By the time we finished our work together, his house had been in foreclosure. That was reversed. He had meaningful employment. His personal, family, and community relationships had been repaired to the level that they were today. So that's just a story that I remember. When I was working with him and the BCL call happened and all of that, I had a feeling that maybe he was someone that wasn't going to get a chance to get his feet back on the ground and get things moving forward, and that was really difficult for me, just as a human being, kind of, and just being away and concerned. And he turned it around for himself, and he got support and help, but he ultimately learned how to advocate for himself and be a good husband and father and productive member of society.
I find there's no shortage of inspiring stories. That's why I really like running Beyond the Uniform. Top three that come to mind: Nate Boyer. Nate got out of the Army and walked on to the football team at UT Austin, went on to play for the Seahawks, got cut from the Seahawks, and I used to listen to this guy's podcast, my own podcast for a minute, it's really vague, but this guy is so motivational, it's like jet fuel. I mean, I go on runs listening to him because he just talks about the type of attitude it takes to walk on to be an NFL player. Nate Boyer is great. A second one, Chris Pestle. This guy went from the Army. He was, Army lieutenant or captain, making, let's say, $100 grand. Took a salary cut to $30,000 a year to be a photographer because he really wanted to be a professional photographer, and was covering elementary school football games and crazy stuff like that, and teaching himself how to take photos and edit them, and started to work for ESPN, started to work for Playboy, and started to work for all sorts of crazy organizations because he loved photography. And I listened to that story and I'm so inspired because he wasn't looking to just maintain, he was looking to get out of the military and just find something that just made him really passionate. And then Jacob Martinez was, God, he was Army as well. I guess all my stories, I'm a Navy guy, but all my stories are Army. He was an enlisted Army guy. He got out. He joined his father's company, which at the time was 8 people. It is now like 400 employees. They've done extremely well. But Jacob Martinez, what I really respect about him, and I was taking personal notes during my interview, is this guy just is a lifelong learner. He is always reading books. He's always going to conferences. He's always learning new skills. And what I like about that is that's, you know, I'm 10 years out of the military now, but the stuff we're talking about here of learning from others and being hungry for others, that continues well past, you know, once the military is pretty far in the rearview mirror. So those are all available at beyondthequorum.io. Those are the three that come to mind for me.
We also have, I think, kind of countless inspiring stories. I think we probably need to do a better job of telling those stories. And I think that would help out what you were mentioning. You know, there are fewer combat veterans, but I'm not worried about that either. I think it's helpful for us to tell the stories of, you know, any veteran. Like one of our employees is she was a dental lab technician. A majority of our summer staff are all alumni program. We hire them to come back and act as fellows, so they become like the new mentors for the new class of Warrior Scholars. But yeah, a majority of them are non-combat veterans. But so one story in particular, I think this individual, a Warrior Scholar alum, was an Army veteran, and he got out, and I think he was working as an iron worker in Philly. You know about that. And his story is so cool to me because like he got out and like he's like an iron worker in Philly. He's like 30, and eventually he hits I think the breaking point where he was like, I can't do this job anymore, and I think I want to go back to school, but like hadn't even taken the SAT. He's one of those where a lot of our Warrior Scholars tell me that they like literally Googled how to go back to college. So he's one of those who's like, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. So he came to one of the first classes of Warrior Scholar, probably I think at Yale, and he, you know, took the SAT and did really well and ended up getting into Columbia. And is he still there? I think he's studying math.
Yeah, he might be. He's about to graduate.
Yeah, he's about to graduate, but he's one of those people too where like you look at him and like he's all tatted up, and he's just one of those people where you don't expect him to be like, I'm studying mathematics at Columbia. And there are just like so many of those people come through Warrior Scholar. And I think that, like I said, if we do a better job of telling those stories, then we do a better job of really like closing that civilian-military divide. Because I think some people who really haven't ever met anyone who was in the military may have like a perception of what that means. Like, oh, if you're in the military, you are a combat veteran. Like that's what they visualize. They don't necessarily see all these like super unique individuals, like someone who's a dental lab technician and is now going to go back to school to become a dentist in the civilian world. And she's also not from America, she's from China. She came to the US and then ended up serving in the Navy. So yeah, just there are so many cool stories.
Yeah, I'll be quick. You mentioned Danny and some others, Tim's its own scholar. I guess I'll share a quick story on one of the scholars named Joan Marfelton, who grew up she's in Mississippi River Delta. She went to a town, believe it or not, that had a black and a white prom, like in the last 15 years. That's a thing, right? Just take a second to think about that. So, she wants to get out of the community where she grew up. She joins the Navy, she becomes a corpsman, she falls in love with medicine. She applies to become a Tillman Scholar. She goes to medical school at GW and graduates. She's now Dr. Joan Marfelton, a resident at the University of Mississippi, to go right back to the community she came from. Like, what does that look like when a black female doctor shows back up and delivers care to black and white children alike, right? She's working on something much larger than just being a doctor, right? So she's one that comes to mind. And another just interesting fellow is a guy named Adrian Perkins, West Point guy. You probably know Adrian. This dude's just graduated from Harvard. Just sent me a text 2 days ago, law school 2 days ago. He's running to be the mayor of Shreveport. He's like 32 years old. But he grew up there, and there's a lot of things that community resourced him with that he appreciates. And he talked in his applications for us about how Shreveport has one of the lowest GDPs for a city in the nation. And he's like, I'm going to law school, I'm going back to Shreveport. And we're like, okay. And I remember reading his app going, does this dude like wind up going to Harvard, and like does he get distracted Sidley in Los Angeles, you know there's probably dollar signs hanging out there in front of him. Guess what he's doing right now? Going right back to the community he came from. So for us, a lot of people we invest in really are deeply committed to a cause and have kind of that laser focus on the problem they're trying to solve. So those are two that stick out to me because they're doing what they said, right? It's this notion of being a high achiever, of being passionate about a cause, and think about all the people that they're just watching that pursuit of what they're trying to do. It's much bigger than just one person. That's the ripple effect we talk about. That's why those stories came to mind.
Perkins 2024. You guys might go to right.
It's happening, but keep it out.
Wow, it's hard. The first three names I wrote down were Khalil Tawil, Emily Miller, and Brad Snyder. But I'll be honest with all you guys. I have a really hard time celebrating our wins because of the people we've lost. And with tomorrow being Memorial Day, it made me think about Mike Tomai, who's a Marine we lost in 2013 to suicide. And then it made me think of Amber Schleining. A lot of you guys might know she's been the head of the VA's Center for Innovation, which we say is a sea of creativity and an ocean of bureaucracy. But that's sort of where my head went. Brad Snyder, who's one of our first vets, is probably one of the most glorious stories. We met Brad when he was in the hospital. He lost his vision in Afghanistan on September 7th, 2011. He'd been captain of the Naval Academy swim team. And 1 year to the date of his accident, after Commit worked with him for a year, we got him an internship, got him an apartment, found him a swim coach and a place to swim. Took home 2 golds and silver in the London Paralympic Games, and he brought home 4 golds in Rio. He's now at the Naval Academy teaching leadership. Pretty awesome.
That's powerful. Any other questions from the audience? Thank you, Henry.
All right, thank you for watching or listening. Back next week, I've got the next 2 months filled up with great interviews. Also going to start an experiment with rebroadcasting some of the archived vintage Beyond the Uniform episodes that don't get a lot of love because they are so buried now that we have nearly 200 episodes. Just quick 3 reminders. If you like Beyond the Uniform, if you want to support us further, the 3 best ways to do that is to tell a friend, or better yet, tell 100 friends who could benefit from this. Help me get the word out about this completely free resource. Second of all, we are looking for sponsors. If you know of a business that is hiring veterans, a business that wants a military audience to buy their product or services, they can help offset the cost of the show through a sponsorship program. Please send me a note, justin@beyondtheuniform.io, or through the website. And then lastly, there is a donate button on the website if you feel moved to donate. Helps offset the cost of the show. Have a great week, and I will be back next week with more interviews with military veterans about their civilian career. Take care.